Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a Premier League presentation bringing you guys a game for this best of 3 series to finalize on this tournament here, the qualifiers, the European qualifiers for the Premier League. So very excited about it. We're going to see RoX going up against Ice Climbers, and that should be a very interesting matchup here. We've seen both of them go on through the semifinals, and now we're going to see how these two perform up against each other in this best of 3 series here. How's it going, man?
Oh, I'm so excited, Blaze. I really, after seeing Ice Climbers last game, I just want to cast them for the rest of the day. Like, that, aggression that we saw, it's really only to be maxed by, RoX, and RoX have just shown so many different sides of them. Really aggressive with CK play, really great defensive anti-mage play. Like, I feel both these teams have a lot of depth, and I'm curious to see how they're going to try to execute. It looks like immediately, RoX does not want to give away those hyper-aggressive heroes that they themselves prefer, like the Bat Rider and the Nyx Assassin. They seem to be a team that wants to control the flow of the game, even if they are, playing with a more defensive mindset. And they're just not willing to give away that Nyx Assassin and Bat Rider, which are two heroes that can completely control the flow of the game.
Easily. So that's, yeah, definitely something to keep in mind. Phantom Lancer and Rubik going to come on out, and that's going to be some big picks coming on through. Keeper Light is banned out, so the laning isn't as good. But Tinker, holy crap, these picks are going to be very dynamic, very interesting. Okay, they're like, okay, well, this is game one. Let's get a feel for these guys. Let's try something out. Throw them a little bit off kilter, because honestly, the first game in a best of 3 is completely underrated. If you get that first win, you have them kind of just in their mindset that it's a little bit of a psychological victory where they're like, okay, well, we're on the back foot. We have to win 2 games against a team that just pulverized us. So if you try something a little bit risky and it works, then you have a huge, just complete, not advantage, but you really psychologically have them on the back foot. And from there, the fact of the matter is, if it doesn't work out for you, if you do lose from something a little bit cheeky, a little bit dynamic, then you're like, okay, we'll play something more standard, we realize where we messed up here and here, and move forward. So I think it's generally better to play a little bit more dynamically in the first game of a best of 3 here, but we're seeing some interesting stuff one way or another. The Shadow Demon going alongside the Phantom Lancer to set up a lot of potential damage. If you go for that Disruption and Soul Catcher, and you follow that up with a Spirit Lance, not only is it a lot of damage because of the Soul Catcher, but also the fact that you slow them down, they take more damage from their own illusions, and it just creates this very powerful team lineup. So I'm really liking to see where this is going to go, but they need to round out their mid and their off lane a little bit more, because obviously these are heroes that are going to be, generally speaking, on the defensive tri lane.
Yeah, you're going to have to give me a second, Blaze, because it looks like my computer has in fact crashed. So I will be trying to... I think I will have to go and bust out that task manager. So feel free to solocast. I'm going to mute my microphone while I make these changes.
No problem at all. So what we're looking at there is just going on through. We have that Tinker picked up, like I mentioned. We're also seeing a Chen and Magnus being banned out, along with that the Leshrac taken off the board. So taken out, specifically, I'm kind of surprised to see the Shadow Demon team banning out the Leshrac, because I think that's where it would be most prominent. But one thing to keep in mind is they already have their 2 supports. They don't want to have to worry about that, so that's what they're mostly going to be banning, is really powerful supports that can control the lanes effectively and that kind of thing. So Bane is going to be another one of those, and pretty much they just don't want Anti-Mage to have a comfy time going up and doing what he wants to do. But honestly, Shadow Demon is a great pick even up against an Anti-Mage. If he drinks up his mana break at all, that means that you're going to be able to pop off the illusions. They'll easily get each one right-click on the Anti-Mage, possibly depleting him so that he cannot blink away. And of course, with that, if you get the Demonic Purge to follow, no chance at all. He's going to get locked down, and that's really powerful. But generally, all that forces Anti-Mage to do is not go for that mana break, and therefore not play as aggressively. Just kind of resort to farming and just kind of moving in towards like a mid-game Battle Fury type build-up. But curious to see the Tinker. Is he going to go for the mid lane? And obviously, who's going to be picking him up into those circumstances there? We've seen Sharfik do some awesome play with Tiny, and that's obviously a certain type of skill set, but Tinker is a whole nother book. So we'll have to see how he opens that one up, but in the meantime, a Venomancer will be picked up to support the Anti-Mage. Beyond that, it looks like we're going to be seeing the Jakiro banned out. Sorry, missed that a little bit earlier, but just another one of those powerful lane supports. So the Veno is going to be what got through. And honestly, support like a Crystal Maiden wouldn't even be that bad on top of that, but they might want something a little bit more durable as they're going up against that PL. And as soon as he gets that Diffusal Blade, throwing out lances like that left and right, it's going to be rough. So it looks like Rain is going to be out for about a minute or so, at least, because he is offline for the time being. So solo casting on through. I am Blaze, and he is Rainmaker, and I just kind of clearing this up as we go on into the best of 3. And yeah, game 1, this is going to be really, really exciting out of the gate, what they have to bring to the table here. But we saw Anti-Mage farm up in the past 2 games. He's been able to farm very effectively and do what he needs to do, stay mobile, stay active, and be all over the battlefield. But as far as the aspect of the design of Ice Climber is to really play to the strength of having those illusions up against the Phantom Lancer. You put down a wall of replica, let's say a rank 2, and it procs off 1 Lancer proc with the Juxtapose, which is given as a passive to the illusions. Suddenly you have the potential to build up this entire army which can go up against them. And right now RoX doesn't have that much AoE damage to deal with their own illusion composition. Now they're going with the Storm Spirit, which is something that I believe... I'm trying to remember who picked that up, but either way, it's a dynamic hero, and he has a lot of potential in the mid lane here, so I really like that. The one thing is you do still have 3 intellect heroes going up against an Anti-Mage, so they all have decent intellect base and growth. So from there, they're going to be kind of walking mana bombs in that sense, from there, so we're looking at Rubik and, I mean, all of them, pretty much. If they get mana breakdown, if they get mana voided, they're going to be taking a lot of damage and possibly dealing a lot of damage to their teammates. So that's something to watch out for. But Earthshaker is going to be a really interesting pick. The Fisher isn't really that great of a blocking mechanism to prevent Storm Spirit from ball lightninging and things along those lines. But the fact of the matter is it's a super powerful tri-lane. Venomancer, Earthshaker, Anti-Mage together, all 3 of them, they're going to be able to play the best defensive tri-lane. Anti-Mage will have absolutely no farm, and that's what Earthshaker does. He secures the lane, he goes for a high turtle potential, so on and so forth, and that's going to be interesting. But beyond that, the Clockwork is picked up, this time around by Sidoi, their off-lane player, and we'll have to see how it works out for them. Previously, we've seen Biz Perfect run on the carry, supported very effectively by Yul, who's now in the Shadow Demon, and presumably Hardiv will, move on around, stack and pull, do whatever he needs to do to keep the team up and at him. But I think that really our eyes need to be on the momentum and the mobility shift of when Sidoi is actually able to start branching out a little bit more aggressively with those rockets, with those hook shots, actually getting pulled a lot of regen to start off, selling himself. Now he's got enough tangos to survive for the time being, and we'll probably pick up a Stout Shield or something along those lines to do what he can. But I gotta say, if that Earthshaker works out in the favor of the Dire, then Clock's gonna have a hard time on top. So I'll get Rainmaker back on in here, and we'll go on into the cast. How's it going, man?
Oh, I live. I've managed to salvage the wreck that is my computer.
Sure
well,
enough.
I shouldn't call it that. It's going to feel bad now. My computer is perfectly serviceable.
Yeah. Well, there you
These
go.
are really interesting lineups.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking about, sending the Clock up top, Sidoi going on the off lane there. He's going to be going up against that Earthshaker, who, if he can land a good Fisher, he's going to completely shut down Clockwork's potential to escape. He doesn't have a blink, he doesn't have an Ethereal Jaunt like Puck or Queen of Pain. So the fact of the matter is, if he gets caught out, if he's in a bad spot, he's going to have a very bad time. And unlike a hero like Darkseer, he doesn't really have the option to just, go into the jungle. He can, technically, but it's slow, it's inefficient. It's not going to be nearly what he needs it to be. So Sidoi's going to be in an awkward position right off the bat, especially since Venomancer, Earthshaker are really, really powerful in a defensive tri-lane. However, they knew that going on into it, and they're still picking this up and trying to send Clock up top. So that's going to be interesting right off the bat.
Yeah, I'm actually really surprised they decided to go for both the Earthshaker and the Vengeful Spirit, because they're both heroes that want to farm rather...
Vengeful Spirit?
Oh, sorry, Venomancer.
Okay.
Man, my V words are... It's bad today.
Cool.
Anyway, but they're both heroes that want to pick up levels fairly aggressively, and while Venomancer can roam, and DS they can both roam very effectively at low levels, I don't think this game is going to be very good for them if they decide to. Also, I don't know what the pick order was, but picking an ES into a Rubik sets you up for some of the most frustrating things you can do in Dota. But another interesting thing is the Tinker pickup was right after the Phantom Lancer, correct?
I believe so, yeah, it was already on the board.
Yeah, so that's actually, Tinker does very well against Phantom Lancer, not only because, just the fact that March will shred those illusions until this very, very late game, but also the laser and rocket, it's a surprising amount of burst, and if you get vision of that Phantom Lancer, you can just take him down immediately in the early game. So, really good lineup there. On the other hand, I feel that the way the Radiant wants to play this out is to get levels on both the Storm Spirit and the Clockwork, and then with some assistance from both supports, they can initiate from a very long way away and snipe off heroes like the Earthshaker and the Venomancer. However, this Darkseer and Anti-Mage are going to be very difficult to pick off, and I feel if Tinker does fairly well in this mid lane, decently timed boots of travel means that they're just not going to get a good angle on him.
Yeah. No, but I gotta say, when this game branches out into the mid game, it's going to be really, really interesting to see what these guys can do. I mean, the Clockwork is a very skill-based hero as far as positioning. Storm Spirit has a lot of potential just going aggressively, running on in, and yeah, dishing out a lot of damage there. But on top of that, it's just a lot of potential across the board. You said the Rubik with the spell steals against Earthshaker and stuff like that. It's a scary thing, and it's definitely something they'll have to deal with as we kind of move on forward. But one thing I gotta say is the fact that there are so many mid pulls going on, they were able to chop down a few trees in the mid lane there, and it's been pretty effective for helping control up against this Tinker for the time being. Tinker currently, you know, he's here and there, but he's working out as far as experience per minute goes. It's not the end of the world one way or another, but that's mostly because of, you know, when the creep wave is active and that kind of thing. So the haste is on mid lane. They're going to go for a kill right here. They do have the opportunity to path block a little bit. Yeah, Tinker can't get in, and the Electro Vortex and the creeps to surround it. He's completely blocked in by his own minions, and it's just going to be completely obliterated there. So yeah, they were trying to group up, give a little bit of a group hug to help him out, huddle up, and instead lock him down. So he's unfortunately going to go to the grave and have to TP on back, delaying his bottle very substantially.
Yeah, I mean, with especially now that the Storm Spirit has bottle and boots on the Tinker, Tinker is basically going to be relegated to getting that bottle and then starting to bottle crow and not being able to pressure the side lanes as effectively as he'd like. That basically means that we're going to go and see a March build Tinker, because I wouldn't be surprised, Sharfik, from the last game if he decided to play a very aggressive Tinker, you know, and kind of based off of his tiny play. But if you've lost the lane to the point that he has, and I do believe he has pretty significantly lost the lane, it's going to be better just to start to farm up so you can get those boots of travel in a reasonable time. I don't think he's going to be able to go and pressure side lanes.
Yeah. But one thing to note is I believe Yoel's missed 2 mid pulls in a row. I definitely know he missed the one most recently, and possibly the second one is that there really hasn't been that much experience denial up against Sharfik, other than obviously killing him in the first place. But looking at that, like, he's been actually pushing the lane a little bit and allowing Tinker to farm safely on his tower. So this would be a substantial advantage for the Storm Spirit. It's turning into something reasonable but not overwhelming. He could still...
Well, I mean, the Storm Spirit is like a level and a half on the... on the Tinker, right? So I think a lot of that's just due to like really good denying from the Storm Spirit and just kind of zoning the Tinker out of experience. So, but the bigger problem
is
there's not a gank,
Yeah, they get the disruption, means they do get the telekinesis. The Remnant is going to do a lot of damage as well. The Courier flying in to try to help him out. They're not just going to be forced back in a bad position, and he's going to get obliterated. Finally gets his bottle to him, only to refill it immediately at the fountain, and just in a bad spot. So that is 1 kill for the Storm Spirit, and 1 for the Radiant, I suppose. And that, in the end, really is nice for them. But up top, Sadoy taking a lot of damage, slowed up by the Venomancer, out of position, and gets locked down. Doesn't even need the Earthshaker in that circumstance, as he's obviously been down in other positions. Actually blocking off the Rubik, taking the regeneration for himself, and not getting telekinesis up on a cliff is really, really obviously going to make that worth it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a good play there. It's very good that the Venomancer was able... as soon as the Clockwork saw that the ES was mid, he started playing up a little bit. And, you know, it doesn't take 3 euros to kill the Clockwork in this kind of lane. The Anti-Mage, after leveling that Mana Break, does a ton of damage. And, you know, it was enough with the Venomancer just to get a kill on the Clockwork. Nexus is doing a really interesting build this game. Normally when we see like an anti-mage that's getting relative free farm like this, you'd go for the 1-1-1 build and get stats. But even though he's going for that battle free, unlike last game, he is still taking a commitment to being able to do a lot of damage early on by getting points in that mana break.
Yeah,
this is different than if you remember, like RoX, they prefer just to go. I don't think that was even brown boots, just 1-1-1, no boots, like immediate battle fury. So it's just a different way to play the hero.
Sure enough, but an interesting aspect of that is the fact that he is up against a Shadow Demon, so if that disruption does come out, he's going to be mana burning himself out almost as much as the enemy, and he has to watch himself in that matchup there, as Shadow Demon and Rubik have been pretty good as far as their transitions, of course, bringing down the Tinker a couple times. Now, it looks like the Dire are looking for some good aerial denial and a little bit of map control in the sense of sentry wards.
Look at top rune. Like, there are two wards that are looking at each other. There's, like, eyes from different players.
But the reason they didn't drop that off is they did have smoke active, and they didn't want to break that out and obviously reveal their position there. So they hung on to it for the time being, kind of trying to keep the mystery involved. But if the enemy, if RoX was looking at that sentry ward's position, they could easily have seen them just based on the sentry.
And there's a ward on the high ground, right? So, like, didn't they counter the high ground ward on that top eye?
I don't know, but there is a disruption going up, and there is a Fisher. Shadow Demon taking so much damage. The haste rune, will it be enough? He has to eat a tango. No, they've been scaled to be too much, looking for the deny. Still liner, not ball lightning to it. If he did ball lightning, it could have happened, but it's obviously something that would have been hard to accomplish in the timing window there. Either way, it is a kill for the Venomancer, and that's going to set him up pretty successfully to move in towards hard support. Also looking for an Urn of Shadows to, throw more dots on Nixia there.
Right.
But beyond that,
I think, that's actually a really good build. In the meantime, though, the Tinker, still very far behind, but, like, slowly salvaging. The experience with the assist is actually fairly vital. He is, in fact, going for that March build. I would really like to see the Venomancer or the ES start stacking camps for the Tinker to clear. Perhaps not Ancients, because, if the Storm Spirit ever gets sight of that, or
Liner on mid, putting down the Electric Vortex, and doing some overloads to set up for the Telekinesis, burning him down, Fade Bolt goes on through, completely obliterates him there, and yeah, Tinker is in a bad spot. The fact that he is sitting at level 5, and Storm Spirit, when he even has half a mana pool, can easily set up somebody to just walk in from the lane, TP to the tower even, and just like shift right click them, and they can contribute just because of the amount of slow that's been put out. And now the question is, where can Tinker farm? Should he just kind of, now that he has rank 3 March of Machines, go for Ancients instead? He's TPing mid, but I've got to say I'm not sure if that's the right decision to make.
Yeah, I think he's just in a really rough spot right now. There's not a really good safe place for him, except for, I guess, his own woods. I wouldn't be upset if he just picked up it looks like self-disruption, but it's probably not going to be enough here.
Yeah, just in a bad spot. He was scouting out on the Ancients, thought Tinker might be heading that direction there, and gets a ward up, so in the end, he is a little bit successful in that regard, because you can easily see the machines marching along with that ward in that position, but beyond that, he did, of course, sacrifice himself just for a little bit of vision, and it's really jury's out as whether that's going to be worth it or not in the long run. We'll have to see, but in the meantime, there has been a lot of last hitting coming out from this Phantom Lancer. We were talking about how this Anti-Mage is going to be propelled into Battle Fury mode really, really quickly, but I gotta say it's pretty much the same case. Oh, dusting out and popping off the Gale on an illusion, completely just doppeled up and juked out in that regard. So nice play by Biz, just, wasting some mana and wasting some cooldowns, and of course 90 gold just thrown at them is not where you want to be starting off. As far as
it's the time, right? Because this Earthshaker is not getting any levels. I'm surprised he's even level 3 with the amount of roaming he's doing. If they don't get something done, they're really kind of crippling themselves for the late game.
Now coming in, Rubik trapped in, actually in a really bad spot there, taking some damage from the Poison Sting. Now Ball Lightning coming in, Sliner wants to finish off the Venomancer, knows he's down, but actually might lose the Rubik in the process because he wants to clean up on the Earthshaker. So yeah, self-disruption on the Rubik defensive, and they're going to pop off the Salve to keep it up because the Venomous Gale sitting only at rank 2, not going to be able to dissipate that, and they were able to, get what they needed out of it. So he survives, and in the end they pick up a couple kills. So they bring down the Earthshaker, they bring down the Venomancer. Support kills don't seem like that big of a deal, but if you look at the experience per minute now, with the Storm Spirit roaming on around, 450 for him, and actually 418 for the Phantom Lancer, just shy of that Anti-Mage, who's pretty much been completely solo 100% of the time. I gotta say that they're putting a little bit of good momentum right off the bat. Maybe not in gold, but definitely moving back in the right direction for experience. No problem.
I'm gonna go fix it.
In the meantime, Tinker does have that bottle and has not been harassed recently, but I see that changing anytime soon. But beyond that, what we see here, Yol is kind of transitioning around, wants to change that, wants to keep the pressure rolling. Soliner filling up on mana, looking for, he actually went for the mantle for the treads, now looking for a couple of mantles for the orchid to try to just have the gigantic pool to work with that gradual regeneration. And really one thing IC's lineup really doesn't have available is hard escapes. Like, they don't have a Queen of Pain Blink. I mentioned that with the Clockwork, but obviously that's the case right here. But nice Fisher underneath the tower. Sliner taking a couple right clicks. Will Solo be able to get the Gale off is the question. Bottling up, he will not be able to get it off. Instead, Rubik put off the Telekinesis. Sadoya going to be the only casualty here, and instead they're just going to fall back from that position. Stellainer picking up a rune. No, not just yet. 10-minute rune was actually a regeneration, which Shadow Demon picked up on bottom. But they did get the kill on the Tinker, and they're still forcing him down for the time being. Get him back in here.
Sweet. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that Cogs was actually a lot more harmful than helpful in that mid engagement right there. He just basically set them up to go and tank all of those machines. That's basically the one problem with this Tinker, is that even though he is like so far behind, only level 7, March does a ton of damage.
Yeah, really does. So that's, I mean, it adds up over time. Yeah. The fact that it is rank 4, even when, I mean, nobody's going to pick up a BKB in this game, honestly.
Right.
It's not going to be an issue at all. But the fact of the matter is, it does a lot of damage over time. You have to kind of respect the amount of zone control it puts out. He doesn't have rearm yet, so it's only going to be one march at a time. But the fact is, when he gets multiple on the field, it's just the ground is completely not an option to fight upon, especially since Clockwork, when he initiates, he generally forces the enemy to stay in a certain position, but that means that you yourself are also stuck in that spot. So when he jumps in, when he wants to hookshot in, if there's a couple marches down, it completely negates the potential to come out on top of that fight.
Yeah, I'd also like to point out something, just another optimization thing. This anti-mage decided to finish his treads before getting the Battle Fury, and I gotta say, that's not correct. Because when you have, like, I love treads on anti-mage when you're trying to be aggressive and you're trying to do things on the map. I don't think this is the first hero the anti-mage has seen.
Is the telekinesis going to come? It does. Yeah. They do get the telekinesis and the electric vortex before the blink comes through, so that's a nice free kill. And Rubik picks up a rank 4 blink for himself.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. But, like, if you look at what the anti-mage is doing, he's, like, skilling a lot in blink, a lot in mana break. This is the build you want to do if you're looking to be really active on the map. But those are the first heroes you've seen, right? And at this point, it's not like those the treads are going to save him. You know, the attack speed really what's about. Mid lane, I think the Storm's going to get a solo kill.
Yeah, with the haste rune, you just can't get away from that. Even with the nice Gale, or in response, it's killing spree for Sliner. He's really just building up that momentum to kind of snowball out of control.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised. This is the second game where we've seen Storm that's going for Orchid before he's getting a Bloodstone. Now, I understand it in the previous game because the Storm Spirit was farming a safe lane and it already picked up a Midas, but in general, I find that Bloodstone actually allows you to do a little bit more in fights. Although against a Tinker and an Anti-Mage, it just might be necessary to go and have that silence up.
Yeah, Tinker RoX is completely wasted there, no vision on any opponents. And it's just one thing I gotta say about RoX's lineup is they're so great at disengaging. One telekinesis, even rank 1, will be able to throw somebody up and then you can drop him on top of his allies. Everybody's stuck in that position and nobody's gonna really be able to follow up like they intend to. So this position, it feels like RoX has full control. They're in the driver's seat. Anti-Mage is one hero that they might have issue locking down, but obviously in that top engagement didn't have too much issue. So the disruptions, either offensive or defensive, and the telekinesis, and soon to be with the cogs, they're going to be ranked up pretty soon, and they can control the battlefield much more effectively than I feel IC can.
Yeah, and now it seems like this the Phantom Lancer is going to top lane, and actually Phantom Lancer fares very well against a solo anti-mage. He's one of the few heroes that can actually bully an anti-mage out of lane, just because, you know, when you go and throw your spear at him, it does some damage. Yes, it's partially negated by the mana shield, but then the extra attacks that your illusion does with the Fusel Blade just spam the anti-mage out of lane, and I don't know if this anti-mage will be able to go and maintain himself, especially without a Battle Fury even now.
Now, you were talking a lot about the Anti-Mage's skill build, but one thing is about his support, the Venomancer. Generally speaking, you see just like 1 in Gale, 1 in Sting, and then maxing out for the Plague Wards. And the fact that that's not happening is kind of limiting one great potential that IC had available. With the Ion Shell, with the March, with the Plague Wards, they could be pushing very aggressively, but as we see, there's very little damage on any of the towers. I mean, Tier 1 has been taking some hits, mostly because nobody's really been in that lane at all, and it's just a gradual action of the siege creep and the creeps themselves, but Anti-Mage putting pressure on top just because he's been left alone. So, in general, I think that IC could be capitalizing on that more, getting last hits on towers, getting a little bit more of a gold advantage, because right now, they are most certainly behind, well over 1,500, and Phantom Lancer is great for late game. The fact is, he does have an agi scaling of 4.2, which just gets ridiculous as the levels go by.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think that they are playing this appropriate. Like, they're not doing enough on the map, and a lot of that is just due to the fact that they lost mid badly. Normally, you would expect to have, like, Soul Ring, TP boots at, what, like, 12 minutes? Something like that? And he still doesn't have his, Boots of Travel, there we go. Anyway, TP boots. But he still doesn't have his Boots of Travel at 15 minutes. Like, this is, like, you know, just completely getting destroyed mid. And it's coming from the great roaming coming from the Radiant supports. And the reason they were able to do that is because Phantom Lancer can hold his own in a solo lane very well against the Darkseer. Just naturally high damage, and he decided to go for that quick Tranquil Boots, which just give him, like, infinite sustain. Now he's going for a Yasha. What Yasha means on Phantom Lancer, I find, is that he's going to try to split push a lot more. If you want to go and join fights immediately, you see Diffusal hard. But with this Mantis style, he can just go and pressure side lanes.
No, they're going to fall back from there. The tower's in deny range, they'll take it. They have complete control of this position, and they're just going to be able to A-click it on down. I'm surprised they haven't yet. They really want to hold this position. I mean, it is map control, but that is still gold that's going to eventually go to the enemy, and if they don't take care of it right now, I don't know if it's going to be an option later on. But anyways, for the time being, going on through. They have the Boots of Troubles on Tinker. He picked them up from farming up the Ancient Caps, but one limitation is, I gotta say, RoX.KIS' draft of the Storm Spirit up against that Tinker, it's a perfect counter draft. Going in, the second you see him on the lane, you can Ball Lightning, cancel that TP. He has to go for a rearm in order to try to TP on out again, and by that time period, you can just burst him down like crazy. In fact, if you get the Orchid off, then you can completely negate it.
Okay. No, they decided to back off there, and I'm pretty sure now it's going to be denied. Yep.
Yeah.
But they did, force him to spend a lot of time. But, while their anti-mage is being, like, free-farming top, he is, getting matched by this PL who's free-farming bot. And unless this anti-mage really uses his Battle Fury to, like, maximum potential and gets, like, all the jungle, all the creeps, a tower, and, like, a stacked Ancients, I think, this Pandaman is going to farm faster, because he can go and farm jungle very quickly, too, with his, not Doppelwalk, but a Juxtapose. Bot lane.
And they're actually, they're engaging, surprisingly. So Liner goes in over his head, completely underestimating the opposition, and gets locked down there. Honestly, I don't really see where he thought that he could come out on top of that. Doesn't have his Orchid finished just yet, and with that, he went for the Tinker. He knows he's squishy, but of course that is underneath the tower, and he's going to pay the price for it, so may reconsider such actions in the future. But meanwhile, Phantom Lancer farming up, going to be able to use rank 2 Juxtapose to kind of, to an extent, self-propagate in the jungle and allow him to farm up that Manta style pretty quickly there. If he gets his Manta before the Anti-Mage, then I really got to say that there's just so much momentum for RoX, because Anti-Mage is that kind of flash farm hero where he should be able to get more out of it than anybody else. He should be able to... Okay, initiation for Clockwork. Venomancer going to take a lot of damage, but instead changing over the Battery Assault with the Clogs. Sadoy actually pushing away. Not exactly sure if that was the best course of action. Surge still available from Darkseer. Pops it off. Will be able to get far enough away, and Storm Spirit not just TPing on in, is not going to be able to pursue. So I feel they could have brought down the Venomancer and instead just kind of let it lie. Sadoy underneath the tower. No, they're just going to push it gradually.
Yeah, but with that, a killer or even a Basilisk, oh wow, this Storm Spirit is going deep, but I think he's in fact going to get that kill.
Yeah, just one more right click is all he needs. Goes for the Ball Lightning, does get fissured up for the time being, low life right now, and he's going to get completely obliterated. The Venom, Poison Nova popped off, but the Gale coming on through from the Rubik as well, so Solda's going to be on pretty low life, but it is only a rank 2 Gale, so it's not going to be that big a deal one way or another. Honestly, I gotta say, Stelliner really going in over his head over and over. He of course got a kill that time around, but it has its limitations, and obviously we saw it there.
I think he's not like recognizing the fact that the enemy team is like they're all sitting together holding hands at all times. It's just, and they're gonna get bot tower for free. It looks like.
Ooh, big solo kill though. I didn't really catch this one too effectively, unfortunately. Sorry about that, guys. But the fact is, there was a 1v1 between Nexus and Phantom Lancer under the tower, and in the end, it went the way of a deny for the Radiant. RoX was able to take that money off the board, but in the end, Nexus got that solo kill. So not really patting his pockets as much as he'd like, but look at that experience jump up. 602 experience, getting the solo kill on the second in command in that regard was really, really effective for him. So he's going to be able to move towards level 16, get some big mana voids, and of course, big stats coming on through with high agility.
Yeah, I mean, the Mana Void is going to be super relevant in the late game. When you're looking at this Storm Spirit, who will have a huge mana pool after he finishes his Orchid and probably +1 item. I don't, like, that might instantly kill this poor little Shadow Demon, who himself is walking around with a pretty decent mana pool. But Anti-Mage is gone for the Vlads, and he's going to transition to that split push roll that, is, why we all, like, love to complain about Anti-Mage. Like, he's going to be really difficult to deal with. There's not a ton of lockdown on the Radiant side either to go and really hold him in place. They'll need to get a Storm Spirit initiation on top of Rubik.
Interesting play going on through with the Clockwork Ultimate Gun to counteract the Boots of Travel, which means that he's going to get locked down. Instead, multiple times over, Darkseer getting caught in the cogs, now Anti-Mage jumping on in, getting 2 kills out of that. Triple kill total. Wow, that was complete burst damage, just going for big right clicks and getting a nice double void off, now pushing up on the tower. But yeah, just found the opportunity. They got a good pick off on the Tinker, caught him out with his pants down. He almost got out of there, and then the Clockwork comes on in, but to no avail. What I was kind of saying was, Clockwork, with those cogs, puts people in a spot, and with those mercs that were constantly rolling, put people in a very critical health threshold that Anti-Mage was easily able to capitalize on. So really nice action from him as he moves towards his Manta style soon.
Yeah, if you look at the Phantom Lancer, he's actually audibled into the heart. He's realizing his team's picking a lot of fights, and they're picking fights that they can't win, so he needs to be in there and be really tanky. If he's able to get that heart within the next, 5-6 minutes, they'll be in a very good position, but it's going to be tricky because there's much less space on the map for him to farm at this point. They lost bot tower, they lost both towers mid and top while denied. That's still gold going into that Anti-Mage's pocket, and it's less room for the Phantom Lancer to farm. Dire's strategy of just kind of like sticking together and not giving the Radiant team like room to initiate has paid off for them a lot. A little bit better than I feel it should have, because like the Storm Spirit has been playing super aggressive without an Orchid. I wish he would just sit for like, he's doing it right now, but I wish he would have sat for like 2 minutes and farmed the Orchid before he went in previously.
Yeah, that's very true. Very good point. If he had that Orchid, a couple of the initiations he went on would have been a completely different story. And
yeah.
It's kind of a coulda, woulda, shoulda thing at this point in time, but they had a lot of early going momentum, and now looking at the gold graph, looking at the experience graph, both those just thrown away, and it just seems like a little bit of a waste. They had such potential, especially killing Tinker a couple of times over, but he's bouncing back. And one thing that we saw last time, I believe it was RoX, trying to push up and down on the Radiant base and just couldn't get past the high ground very effectively for a very long period of time. And I think that might be something that we're going to see again. The fact is they have the March Machines, they have Plague Wards to stack up, they have the Fisher, and they have a Wall of Replica. They can turtle so hard with IC's lineup here, and in the end, I think it's going to make it so that it's, even if RoX has an advantage, has all the outer towers taken down, taking down the tier 3s, pushing on the high ground, is going to be really, really difficult for them. And that's why they're investing so hard in making sure that Biz is perfect. It's just farming up like a boss and trying to go for big items like Heart, Manta, Butterfly, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think the one thing they have going for them this game, though, is it's pretty hard to go and push up onto RoX themselves. They're able, just between Phantom Lance spam, the threat of initiation from the Storm Spirit and the Clockwork, and I heard the Storm Spirit went pretty deep, but then he decided against.
Yeah, he has the Orchid now, but they have a really nice Radiant Ward, is what he was basing that on, but with the TP retaliation, he can't act like that all the time.
Yeah, the fact they weren't able to get these towers down as quickly as they liked is really costing them now. But I think between Rubik, Fadebolt, this Phantom Lancer spam, like, they're going to have time. It's going to be difficult for the enemy to go on high ground. A lot of this game is going to come down to the Roshan and who will have that extra body to throw at their enemies. And I feel when it comes to Roshan engagements, Dire's way in the head. They have that Darkseer, they have an ES Echo Slam, Venomancer ultimate, and Venomancer, even at level like 6, that's a very strong ultimate. And given that he's already level 9, I really hope they go and feed him some experience so he's able to get that level 2 ultimate off, because that does a ton of damage. And on top of that, March of the Machines, which cannot be underestimated. So if they get an extra body on the Anti-Mage, who has finished his Manta style, you're going to be in a great position. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to get that right now, and he is soloing it in fact, and use that to go and try to push the high ground before the Phantom Lancer finishes his heart.
Very true, very true. Well, one thing that I find interesting a little bit is we see a lot of Darkseers pick up mechanisms now so that the supports can play aggressively, focus on warding and counter-warding and just being in the middle of the action rather than, maybe farming a couple neutrals through stacks and pulls or something like that.
Right.
What we're seeing right here is Clockwork kind of doing the same thing, picking up a mech for his own team instead of the Shadow Demon, who would generally be the carrier for that. Do you feel that that is their best course of action as they're just trying to keep everybody alive for the late game, or do you think he should be going for more items built around his skill set?
I think, well, Clockwork, like, if you look at other items he could get, like, you'd maybe see like a Blade Mail, you might see an Ags, or you might see a Necrobook, and all of them have the
nice initiation. Anti-Mage Blink used by Rubik to telekinesis up and kill off that. Oh my gosh, Vacuum though. Gonna drop down the Rubik, and instead they're gonna be in pursuit of that Phantom Lancer, turning things around. Sliner coming in with that Orchid, bursting down Darkseer, dropping really, really low, but the mech comes on out. That ultimate from the Venomancer is doing a lot. Anti-Mage blinks in, finishes off the Storm Spirit. Now look, they can't clean it up. Sadoy in a really big mess here. He's doing a lot of damage to the Earthshaker, but it's not enough. Sadoy gets locked down. Anti-Mage, actually Venomancer finishing that off as they move in, just cleaning up onto Yol, finding another amazing team fight that honestly you couldn't see it coming until it just like swooped in and just took it by storm. The fact is this is 2 team fights in a row where it seems like it's just a little bit of engage, 1 or 2 heroes are going to drop, but really IC is always ready to retaliate and jump in to really capitalize on the aggressive position of RoX, and so they take the tier 2 tower, and yeah, they're going to try to push to end this before Phantom Lancer becomes too prevalent.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that this Phantom Lancer still doesn't have a heart, and if he had just been able to get like completely free farm, he'd have had it like maybe in about a minute, and now he's only sitting at 2,400 gold. He's very far behind, and this Anti-Mage is huge. He's got another 36k gold in the bank. If, he goes, if like his heart timing is anywhere close to the Phantom Lancers, they're going to be very far ahead. On the plus side, though, the Radiant team does in fact have a Shadow Demon, and being able to disrupt that anti-mage and get some anti-mages of your own is very powerful in fights. I'm not sure who's going to have an advantage, and I feel in like about 10 minutes, but right now, if Dire goes in with that Aegis, they'll be very far ahead. And it looks like it's a tab. What is that? What did the anti-mage buy? Eagle Song. There we go.
Yeah. So picking that up and moving towards some pretty late game items as far as agility and evasion goes, but one big issue is he doesn't really have any straight up health. He has 1385 right now, and although he has a nice experience advantage, nice level advantage, that HP only goes so far, especially when there's so much magic damage on the board. One thing to mention though is, I mean, of course he does nullify that with the spell shield, but one thing is I think that would be a lot bigger deal if Soul Catcher was rank 4. But the fact that it is sitting at rank 1, he's actually going for a poison build, which I've seen a couple of times today, and in a lot of circumstances I can see it as a great option, but here I just don't see it being that great of a benefit. You're not going to get more than 3 stacks off on that poison, and although the numbers are substantial, the fights aren't lasting the way that you can just stand there and throw those out over and over. It's going to be quick finishes, anti-mage jumping in, popping off a lot, and you have to respawn immediately, and that's where a Soul Catcher I think shines a lot more so than the poison itself.
I think they were thinking that they would get better initiations off of that Clockwork, and with Clockwork and Rubik, you know, you can have a long time to go and just spam, Shadow Poison, and once you get to, you know, 4 stacks, it does a ton of damage. So I can understand the mentality, but you're right, it's just not working as they intended.
And on top of that, having to buy Arcane Boots to kind of sustain that build instead means that he is that much further from Mechanism and blocks Satoy from going for more aggressive items to try to lock down his opposition, that kind of thing. So Stormspirit will be picking up a BKB in due time, and that'll be pretty awesome. But beyond that, they're really just putting all their chips on the table for Phantom Lancer, who until recently only had the Vitality Booster, which of course doesn't provide health to the illusions, but now he finally has that Reaver. And if the heart is finished, it's going to be effective, very, very effective, until you have to deal with pretty much the entire team fight of IC. So Phantom Lancer in like a 2 versus 1 situation, or even maybe a 3 versus 1 situation, won't be that bad off because he will have quite a bit of health available at his disposal.
Yeah, but now we're looking at an anti-mage who in fact has his completed Butterfly. Like, they've got a very good timing here. You know, he's got a couple minutes left on that Aegis, and I feel that this is their moment to break high ground. Another good thing about the poison, Shadow Poison build is in this part where you're just spamming Shadow Poison, it gets very effective. Between that, Cogs and Shadow Poison...
Initiation still liner going in. Electric Vortex plus the Telekinesis actually going to be able to do a lot of damage to Anti-Mage, but he still has the Aegis for a couple more minutes, and with that, they're just trying to hold the line for the time being. Tinker coming back on in for a couple more marches, actually popping off the RoX at the start, and yeah, he just can keep on going in and out, in and out. That's what he intends to do, and now dropping off a lot of damage, a vacuum into the wall. Phantom Lancer having to dobble on out, but it's a long cooldown. Only rank 1 Nexus gets picked off. Aegis in the ground. Now Lawley taking a lot of damage, already having popped off the Mech and Pipe. Will he take a fall? No. Surging on out. Nexus now doing a lot of damage. Boom! Huge ultimate coming on out. Mana Void to finish off the Storm Spirit. Now Nexus taking a lot of damage from his own illusions, but just able to fall back from there. Are they going to be able to push on to the racks? This is what they came for, and with Storm Spirit down, I feel it's what they can get. They just have to be very careful. Clockwork initiation, picking off Scarf. Shark was trying to go for the TP back, not going to get it. Instead, Gale goes on through. Nice Echo Slam attempt, but it's really not going to hit on too much more. The Venom Lancer will take a fall, but the Anti-Mage will escape, and that's really, they took the damage on the melee axe, but they weren't able to bring it down. And now pursued. The Diffusal Blade comes on out. The TP is attempting. They have the Fisher stolen, though, with no animation delay. Ruby's going to make sure that Darkseer falls as well. So they really wanted this melee Rax. Then, unfortunately, they weren't able to get it. 3 in the grave instead. And, yeah, they were no more casualties on RoX's lineup, because I think that Clock initiation, finding the opportunity to catch out that Tinker when he was trying to travel away when he had very low mana, was impeccable timing. I'm kind of surprised that the Cogs pushed Sharvik away. That was kind of a position where he just hooked him. I don't feel that should have been it, but that happens, that kind of thing, the positional spawn point and whatever. But anyways, Nexus is going to go back to farming away, and currently sitting at a GPM of 709. He's still going to be on top of things, even if they couldn't finish off that Rax.
I mean, if you look at that fight, that was without the Butterfly on the Anti-Mage, and it was that difficult. Like, they got very, very lucky there with being able to Dire rather committed very hard to getting the tower, and that put Anti-Mage very low, and he was immediately able to get bursted down. But I feel that they could have actually decided to go and play the fight out a lot longer and just spam that march. Tinker's really showing his value here. It was just that constant damage.
Yeah, one thing that Icy is doing that I think is actually a really good course of action. I was complaining about them not going for as push-oriented a build early on with the plague wards and stuff to get a couple tower hits, but now that's kind of what they shouldn't be worrying about as far as trying to go for like split push. Venomancer going on like top tower and trying to put pressure that way. Tinker just keeping to a lane and marching after marching. It puts them in a dangerous position where the Storm Spirit and the Qualifier can both go for some good counter initiation, find a pick off and get some kills on the board. But so far, really the kills have been more so in team fights specifically. And although RoX has a great team to pursue the enemy and be able to close the distance and make sure that they won't be able to run away, the fact is Icy is not running. They're standing and fighting, and they're coming out on top pretty much every single time. So it's worked out very, very effectively, but we'll have to see as this Roshan will be spawning in just about 3 minutes whether they will be able to contest it or not. In the meantime, Nexus just pushing up, really, really wants these racks to fall, negating some of the income of the RoX's lineup, as well as continuing that just push momentum as the creeps get stronger and stronger.
Yeah, I definitely feel that, you know, what was it? Icy is they understand the pressure they're under. If they went and delayed the heart for a very long time on the Phantom Lancer, but you know, now that it's up, they're in a pretty interesting position, and they can't let him get a Manta Style. Like if he's able to get Manta Style and heart and has a Shadow Demon on his team, they're going to lose a ton
Initiation
of
Stelliner going in, jumping back down. I'm kind of surprised at how that worked out. I mean, Anti-Mage, of course, blinking out reflexively, but I guess they just know that they can't go very careful. Oh, double Fissure, a lot of damage coming down on Rubik. He will be actually Disruption, which is not the best course of action, but the Vacuum does not catch him on the southern end. Instead, they're just gonna, you know, hold the line as they have been. All these illusions, so many Phantom Lancer juxtaposed, walking on through the march and taking a fall instead. So, I mean, really, it's at this point in time, when if Tinker comes back on in, they have a huge advantage on this high ground. Now the march continuing on through Stelliner, going to have to initiate very shortly. Instead, just bringing down some illusions and keeping the racks for the time being, but it's being poked and prodded down to 190 HP. And I think that there could be a lot of damage coming out. One big thing, though, Darkseer does not have any mana right now. Has the Soul Ring, has 200, but it won't be enough for a wall, and that's the big thing there.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you only have one pair of Mana Boots on the team, and it looks like he is, in fact, going to die.
Yeah, nice pick-off going on through the Orchid to finish the job right here, and Storm Spirit's going to pick up that kill for a nice Darkseer kill. I mean, he was sitting at level 15, so getting some good experience out of that, and continuing to barely hold the line as far as his racks go. They really want to keep this up, because they know that, I wouldn't say it's the beginning of the end, but man, it's so important. I mean, it's obviously probably the most important thing next to the Ancient. And
Right.
In that regard, I mean, they're doing a good job of it. The fact that Phantom Lancer has that rank 2 Diffusal and is getting so many kind of lucky juxtaposed procs and, for that matter, Phantom Edge procs, to be able to do that much damage and that much mana burn to heroes like Darkseer is really, really being very beneficial for them as they go further in.
Invisibility.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at his just like Agi, it's pretty off the charts. You know, he's sitting at around like 150, right? So that means his attack speed is great. You know, he's almost getting 2 attacks a second. When you have that kind of attack speed, just look at these illusions. Like, they are going to propagate. That's the power of getting that Yasha. But, you know, the real danger comes when he hits that Manta. Phantom Lancer really wants to have 2 illusions to start, right? You can normally get those by throwing a spear and double walking.
Yeah.
But if you can start with 5 illusions, you know, maybe even 6 if you count the spear, between the Shadow Demon, Manta Style, Spear, you have 6 illusions. And that's just too much for any team to really deal with effectively.
Nexus going in for a solo on the Roche. Will they be able to catch it out? The Rocket goes through, but now they need to go in right now with the Orchid from Stelliner if they want to go in. Nice bash is coming out on Anti-Mage, actually. He is getting completely screwed over there, but with the March Machines, a little bit of Plague Wards, like I said, they can turtle up a position and control a specific spot. Popping off the pipe a little preemptively, though, they have to commit to something now. They have like 6 seconds left on this pipe, and it's been completely wasted, which is pretty bad for them, but they do have at least a BKB on Anti-Mage to continue now. Doppelwalk, Doppelwalk up Phantom Lancer. He's in an aggressive position, but gets scaled up. Now Stelliner comes in up top. The Roche kill goes to the Radiant. The Aegis goes to the Darkseer, and it is actually a lot of damage coming down. The Shadow Demon getting obliterated right here, and now Nexus doing so much damage to that BKB up. Wicked 6-3 for him. He's going to go on, blinking on through, popping off the Aegis on the Darkseer is the Phantom Lancer on the northern end, but Nexus just trying to get every kill he can fine. Now bringing down Stellainer, and doesn't have the Mana Void, doesn't need it. Knows that Stellainer cannot escape his grasp, his clutches, and it's going to be a monster kill streak for him on top of it. So really using that BKB very effectively and coming out on top by far. The Phantom Lancer was able to sneak back into Roche Pit and TP on out, but nevertheless, it was just such high aggression, and I think it was well worth that team fight there, even if they did lose the last hit on Roche.
Yeah, I don't know if I think the Storm Spirit went in a little bit aggressively there. He did not have BKB, right? If he had BKB, it would have made a lot more sense, but you don't necessarily... The 200 gold, even rather the 1,000 gold for the entire team, it's just not as relevant as,
Ooh,
you know...
Big Fisher, the Gale goes on through, they disrupt him defensively, actually. Nice play by Shadow Demon, isn't enough, though. He's not going to be able to survive on through this. Does he have buyback? No, he does not. And with that, this is going to be completely a terrible team fight, though. Tinker taking a lot of damage and actually will get dropped down. Buyback, 2 buybacks pop now with Stellainer. This time will not be able to escape. And yeah, there's a lot of damage coming on through. They are outside their base in a bad position. Sadoy taking a lot. Disruption once more. Actually picks off the right and damage illusion, so nice play there. But other than that, Nexus popping off his BKB. Wants to try to finish this. Going on Yol will be able to finish the job. So now they're going to look for the tower down here. I almost feel like they should just take the racks, but of course... they have to wait for the creeps to negate the backdoor protection. So, gonna take the bottom tower, and in the meantime, Lancer actually survived out of that. I'm sorry, I completely messed that up, but I believe apparently he did was able to get pull on through that, and I saw him go down, but one way or another.
Yeah, I think, you know, they are still in a position where they can theoretically defend this. The Phantom Lancer TP's in right now. No, just not quite. Glyph is never as long as I want it to be. But I think just the blink fissure from that Urtiger basically gave him a great position. And
they're going to try to bring down Phantom Lancer. They're going to manage to do so right here. Big right clicks. Going to finish the job there. Sadoy going to escape barely with his life, but I think this, yeah, good game call by Stellainer. And I gotta say, I mean, you can see on the, I would say experience, now gold is actually the more prominent here, around the 12-minute mark or so, they had a nice advantage. They got some early kills. Their laning was very, very solid, but the fact that Stellainer initiated in some unfavorable circumstances, played a little bit, you know, showed his hand a little too early. I think they had a great draft, and they had a good counteraction in a lot of regards, but their team fight just wasn't there. They put themselves in spots that they couldn't really work their way out of, and IC just played it really smoothly, going as 5, using the anti-mage very effectively, and just look at those items on him, of course, adding up so much in those team fights there.
yeah, I mean, it was absolutely insane. I gotta say, also in that Roche engagement, like, going to try to both get the Roche killed and the Aegis was very greedy on the parts of the Radiant. Like, it might have even been better just to see the Aegis and the Anti-Mage and go and try to immediately get the supports that are sitting on the other side of the pit. So, it's just very aggressive play coming out from the Radiant team, and they kind of didn't need to do that. I feel like if they had just played defensively and let the Phantom Lancer keep his farm frame going, they'd do better in the late game.
Very true, very true. But coulda, woulda, shoulda. It's not going to happen. It's going to be obviously going the way for Game 1 here in favor of Ice Climbers. And for those of you that have only recently tuned in, this is the best-of-3 Grand Finals match for the Qualifier into the Premier League. So whoever wins this matchup here with 1 point on the board in favor for Ice Climbers, whoever wins this is going to be in the Premier League, the $10,000 league/playoff tournament. That is, going to be coming in February 10th, I believe. And so we have to decide who's going to be the last European slot, and NA Dota is going to have a tournament a little bit later to decide who's the other one for those 10 teams to participate there. But one way or another, I see taking this game in stride and going to move on to the next one. We'll see if RoX can pull it back or if they're going to be locked down in a 2-0 shutout. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm Blaze, this is Rainmaker, and we appreciate you guys for viewing, and hopefully you'll join us for the next game. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah, GG guys.